Bonjour people, and welcome back to another figure review. This time we are looking at the Star Wars Black Series, The Last Jedi, Padawan Training, I don't know what it's called, Rey, Skywalker what do we call her? Vote in the comments, fight for her honour. Decide, what do you call Rey? Is she a Palpatine? Is she a Skywalker? Vote now, because your comments will not ever be read out on this show. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this bit. This is Rey, our heroine from the fabled Sequel Trilogy. And it's a good figure. I've got no problems really with this figure. There's a few nitpicks here and there, but for the most part, this continues the trend of me being very selective in what Black Series figures I get and making sure that they are good ones. So yeah, this is Rey. This is her Last Jedi outfit, specifically from the Supremacy when she goes to confront Snoke with Kylo. And of all of her designs in the films, I think this is actually my personal favourite. Her Rise of Skywalker one comes close, but I like the colour palette of this one quite a lot. And it's her most Jedi looking, I think. So, we shall start by going in and looking at her face sculpt as clearly as we possibly can. I think that's as clear as we're going to get. So, question one. Does it look like Daisy Ridley? And the answer, from far away, the closer up you get, it loses some of the realism. She has, I think a common problem with the multiple Rey figures is that she was sculpted with doughy eyes. And this doesn't quite escape that look, but at the same time it's not terrible by any means. I mean, you're probably thinking to yourself, looking at this right now, it looks pretty good, I don't know what he's going on about. In person you'll kind of understand, but again, from a distance and just generally it does look good. She sports her hairdo from the end of The Last Jedi, which is the only time that she actually changed it up, because all of the other times they were in these bobs, weren't they? 3 bobs along the back. So this is the only time that she sports a longish hair, but it's still tied up in a ponytail. It's sculpted in, it's not a separate piece. So I appreciate the attention to that detail there. Coming along and looking at her Jedi robes, I believe under all of this, she's meant to have the grey undershirt that she sports on Arc 2. It's not moulded into this figure, but the reason why I bring it up is that all of this is kind of like an over robe sort of thing. I've always debated personally, what colour is this? And even in person, I'm still not entirely sure, because whenever I watch the film, I think it's green, and that's the primary colour that I associate with it in my mind. I think it's green, but it's probably brown, to be honest. I mean, again, write in the comments, what colour do you think this is? Debate, fight. Don't fight. It's probably just a specific hue of brown that gives the look of it being green. Alternatively, it could be a specific hue of grey. It's like that thing from years ago. What colour is the dress? Is it blue? Is it grey? What colour is this? Is it green? Is it brown? Is it grey? What is it? What do we think? Because even in person, I'm struggling to figure out what it is. Speaking of grey, she keeps the long cloth anti-sand heat thingies from her original design from Jakku. It's a thing that she sports in all 3 movies, and it's the same design she has in all 3, where you've got these bits just draping over, and then you've got this bit which ends in a loop. I mean, it's an asymmetrical design. It's fairly unique. I've got no problems with it whatsoever. As you can tell, it probably will get in the way of articulation. Moving back up, she has a massive cleavage. Make of that what you will. Her clothes are sleeveless, but she has these separate arm sleeves. She retains these ones from I want to say her Jakku design, essentially from her Arc 2 design as well. She has not Captain Jack's Vortex Manipulator, but just a leather strap on her left wrist. She bears the Skywalker lightsaber. Again, debate in the comments. Whose lightsaber is this? Is it Anakin's? Is it Luke's? Is it Rey's? Sound off! Let your thoughts be heard. She has it's not a double belt, but it's a belt that splits into two parts and wraps all around her torso like that. She has a holster with the blaster that Han gave to her, which I just flicked out there. And it just slides in. It's decently secure. Coming down, she has grey pants or trousers. Debate in the comments, what do you call these? And almost knee-high boots of the colour brown. So overall, it's a really lovely costume. And as I said earlier, it's my favourite of hers from the films. Looking at accessories, here we have the Skywalker lightsaber, which we shall try and jivvy out of her hand. It's near identical to the way it's always looked. It's obviously not the Rise of Skywalker design, so it doesn't have the black strip in the middle. But here it is. It's a light blue colour of the blade. I think the peg that attaches it into the hilt, you can take the blade out, of course. But whether I'd recommend doing that very often, I don't know, because I think the peg has got slightly warped so that the blade is at a bit of an angle. It kind of gives the illusion that she's got a curved hilt lightsaber when she actually doesn't. Now, if we can get to stand up, like how I alluded with Jaina in her review, Rey's actually a real bugger to stand up. She's worse than Jaina to stand up, and I don't know if it's because of all of the cloth goods, even though it's not cloth, it's soft rubber, but it's meant to be cloth. Anyway, I don't know if it's because of all of that she's difficult to stand, or again, if it's just the moulding of the feet. You can take the blade out of a lightsaber, and I suppose in some universe that would be so you could hang it on her belt. It's got a belt hook as well, as you can see there. She's got no hook on her belt to hang this on. Why? Now, the other accessory she has, she's got her staff. And it's bigger than she is. What? I mean, I suppose that's the length it was. It's really nicely detailed as well. Primarily black throughout. You've got these white handle bits, even though they're not. You've got it's a soft rubber, I suppose, even though it's actually a lot firmer than the rest of her, to be honest. And you've got this strap here, which you can pop over her shoulder, and she can don it like she does in the films, and that looks good as well. She can hold it as well. Just before she does, though, I will just focus in on this little bit here. Now, if you watched the end of The Rise of Skywalker, this little bit here becomes her actual lightsaber. And unfortunately, you can't take it off, but then again, this was from the film that preceded it, so that wasn't a thing back then. She can hold the staff, albeit with a bit of difficulty, and it's not the most secure thing in the world, but she can hold it. You just got to try and manoeuvre it past her fingers and thumbs and everything. And there we go. She can hold it, but I honestly would not recommend keeping it in her hands for very long, and this is because her thumbs are a really soft rubber and they are privy to warping, and I found that out the hard way a little bit, especially the thumb on her left hand. It sticks out a long ass way and it's very squishy. So if you value the state of your figure, maybe don't present her with the staff in her hands. And of course, there is this blaster, which Han gave to her on Takodana. Get that in focus. And it's got some nice sculpting to it as well. There are some rivets along the side of the barrel. There's a few others here and there and everywhere. Some nice line work in the body of the gun. The handle is coloured black, and she can hold that in her right hand, just like that. And this incorporates her wrist bend, so she can actually shoot it straight. In terms of articulation, Rey can turn her head right and she can turn it left, albeit only that far, because like with the Jaina Solo figure, her hair limits the articulation. She can't look up, she can look down about that far. She can move her shoulders all the way around, she can move them up that far until her robes cut off the articulation. She can twist at the elbow. She has a very nice bend at said elbow. Her wrists can turn all the way around. Now, this wrist can tilt up and it can tilt down. That's quite loose and that doesn't feel very stable. This wrist can go in and it can go out. So like how I alluded on the Jaina review, this is an example of a figure having two different sorts of articulations at the wrists. She can rotate all the way round at the waist. She can't really bend back, but she doesn't really have much of an ab crunch either. There is a bit of articulation there, but it's hindered because of this big thick belt. She can spread her legs at an odd angle like that. The robes, they get in the way, so that's the best she can do. But she can spread this one out further technically because of the gappage here. This one not so lucky because of the loop. She can kick her leg out that far. Thankfully this is soft enough so that it goes up with the leg, but again it's susceptible to warping, so be very careful as to how you display her. She can kick that one back that far before that gets in the way, and she can kick that one back that far. She has a rotation of the upper leg as is standard for Black Series figures. One leg is tighter than the other, that's just typical. She has two bends at the knee. I'm hesitant to do it with her because if you actually notice on my figure, this leg at the knee is at a really odd angle. It's not straight, so that's disappointing. She has ankle pivot. She can go up and down at the ankle like standard Black Series can, and that is the articulation for Rey Palpatine Skywalker, whatever you want to call her. To get the lightsaber back in the hand, it's difficult, especially if you want her right-handed, just because the way the hand is sculpted for the gun, it's not sculpted to hold a lightsaber, so I'd recommend going up rather than down. Feed the blade through the hand first. And in terms of a size comparison, you saw this in the Jaina Solo video, you'll probably see it on the Ahsoka video whenever it comes out. These three together, size comparison. You can see how they look together. Rey is the smallest of these three, but not by much. So overall, this is a decent Black Series figure. It's not without its flaws, however. While the design is beautiful, the face isn't quite photorealistic, and the general design of the costume unfortunately leads to variables which ultimately hinder the performance of the figure. As I said, these cloth goods, in air quotes cloth goods because they're not cloth, they get in the way of the legs, so you can't do a lot of posability with her below the torso, and mine has like a quality control issue with her right leg being at a more of an angle than her left leg. She doesn't stand particularly very well. It's not awful to do, but there are others that stand better. I would still recommend her. I'm sure the Rise of Skywalker variant is an upgrade from this, but because this is my favourite overall design of the character, this is the one that I chose to get. I would still obviously recommend this over the original Black Series Rey that came out, because I think the face on that one looks awful. I know there's third-party versions of this figure that exist. There's I don't know if third party is the correct term actually, but there's another version of this Jedi training Rey that exists. I think it's probably better in principle, but it's got loads more gappage and lines to it to accommodate even more articulation. So it's up to you to decide what version you want to get. I do still recommend this one. Thank you everybody so much for stopping by and checking out this review. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and share it around to help out the channel. And until the next time, see you all later.